Hey everybody, Jason here. I just wanted to introduce this solo and really apologize for the audio quality of this episode and the last episode. We have been having a lot of trouble and some unforeseen audio hiccups. And so moving forward with episode 57, we are going to start recording individual isolated audio and then blending all of those together so we can give you much, much better audio quality. So again, I just wanted to, kind of jump in here before the show starts and apologize for the, what you'll notice is that Jerry's audio is a little bit loud, and then I occasionally get totally buried in the mix, and I applied a lot of EQ and a lot of normalizing and did everything that I could, but this is the best outcome I could achieve. So at any rate, enjoy the conversation because it is a great episode with a great guest.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Linux for Everyone, and welcome home. Today with me, I have our two wonderful co-hosts, as always, Mr. Jason Evangelo.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
And Mr. Jerry. Should I dox your last name, or do people not know that?
Oh no, I'm very top secret. We'll just go with Jermo.
Jermo.
Oh man. Hey, can I want everyone in the world to hear Jerry's official bio on the Linux for Everyone website at linux4everyone.com. Jerry Morrison is a fan of the classics, Apple PowerBook G4, the OG Legend of Zelda, but that doesn't stop him from distro hopping or testing out the latest in Apple hardware. With experience as an IT director for a private school, as well as teaching tech classes to middle and high school students, Jerry now works as a sysadmin manager for a fintech company. Okay, that all sounds like pretty normal and very, very
pretty
sophisticated,
standard,
right? Yeah.
I'm very sophisticated, yes.
Paragraph 2. But don't think you have him all figured out. If this guy is on your trivia team, he'll likely be able to help you out with obscure band genealogy, as well as any categories related to quotes from the movie Clueless. He has also been recently recognized as a member of the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels. So heretofore, please address him as the Honorable Jerry Morrison.
The Honorable Jerry Morrison. That's going to be how I address you now.
I had someone write that for me. Shout out to my friend Lillian. She did an awesome job.
And with us here today is our wonderful guest, Niccolò from the KDE project. If you'd like to, go ahead and tell us what you do.
Yeah, in the KDE project, I actually have kind of 3 different jobs. And the first one is how I actually got involved in the KDE community. And that is I'm the consistency goalkeeper. And what that means is, in less pretty words, is that I have as a personal goal to make KDE as consistent as possible, because throughout the years I've always heard people say KDE is so inconsistent, and I mean it's a bit true, but now it's less true than before, and I hope that that's partially thanks to the work of the consistency team. And then I also work a bit on the promotion side of KDE, so I've done some announcement animations, I've worked on some videos and stuff like that. You don't usually see that much, but promotion is an important part of actually to actually get new users and then hopefully also developers from those users that you brought in. And finally, I also try to make Plasma prettier by Plasma, I really just mean Plasma, not applications, but the panel, the applets, kickoff, the application launcher, key runner, and so on. Those parts that are really Plasma and that I think my job is to make them pretty. Like I've done a bit of transparency. I've added the headers in the applets and so on.
I would say mission accomplished on that front. But I mean, it's not like I dislike KDE Plasma. I recently switched over from GNOME. So, well, thank you so much for everything that you contribute to the community. But that's not really where you stop. You also, maybe it was, 6 months, a year ago, you started your own YouTube channel. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what you do there?
Yeah, in February, I kind of had this idea, which was like, I wonder if I could do a YouTube channel out of KDE content. Because usually I've watched actually a lot of videos of Baby Bogway. I don't know if you know that YouTube channel. And I thought those videos are cool because they tell you a lot about the Linux community, but they're very cringe. And I was wondering if I could appeal from
Cringe.
cringe, very
Sorry.
cringe. And I was wondering if I could appeal to the same audience of people who want to know what's going on in the Linux community, but in a less cringy way and more about KDE Plasma. And I also started doing like tutorials on how to do a guide on Plasma theming, devlogs, live coding, really to make people started up on actually contributing to Plasma, not just using it, which would be cool. I mean, the more people helping out, the better it is for us.
I wanted to call out one video that you've done that I watched. It was done in March, so this was only about a month and a half after you started the channel.
Yeah, I remember it.
And it seems like it's been resonating with people. The title is KDE Dev Tries GNOME 40. Is it better than Plasma? And I'm not going to spoil the conclusion or anything. You guys can go watch it. We'll have a link in the show notes to this video. But I just wanted to give you recognition for the open-mindedness and the respect that you paid to the GNOME development team. Like he starts this video out and he's playing with the UI and he's saying how clean it looks and how nicely this certain feature is implemented. And it's not at all, maybe it is what you would expect from a, I guess, quote unquote, competing. What? Competing.
He's not a writer or anything. He knows words.
Yes.
Words are hard. It's cool.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Anyway, maybe it is or isn't what you'd expect from a competing desktop environment developer, but I really appreciated that. How has the channel been going for you overall?
It's been going really good, actually. I didn't expect to do that well. I remember that video that I had done on GNOME because it was actually, I've decided to do that video just after I heard some people in the KDE chats saying that GNOME was bad and that we had to compete with GNOME. But if you actually go and talk with KDE developers, they don't have this idea at all. Like we often collaborate with GNOME also with, do you remember the 1st of April joke that we did of GNOME with a K? That was really nice. And I remember doing that video as I wanted to say, like, we are not competing. We're actually friends. We feel more that we are competing with Windows and Macintosh, more like that. GNOME, they're friends. And I was really happy to make that video. And after that was the first big video that like got many views. And it's really been going easier and easier since then. The hardest part was really to convince myself that I could actually do it. I wasn't so convinced that, buying a new camera, a microphone, I was like, oh, can I actually do this? Do you have the skills? But it's going much better than I expected, and I'm really happy.
Practice makes perfect. If you go back and look at the first few Linux for Everyone videos, holy cow. I mean, they're bad. I did that a few days ago as I went back and looked at the first 4 or 5 videos and I was like, why did I ever think that this quality was okay? But you practice and you learn and you iterate and it just gets better and better as you go along. So,
I was gonna say, starting is like usually the hardest part too. Like if you get over that hurdle, like that's usually the biggest thing that blocks most people from getting things done.
I don't want to introduce some toxicity into this, but I will just say, I think we should try to get the word out a little more loudly about the fact that yes, KDE and GNOME developers are friends. They're helping each other, just like System76 is contributing to the overall Linux ecosystem, and Fedora is helping with Radv drivers, and it's just all working towards a common goal. But I don't understand why the tribal mentality exists between desktop environments. I don't know. I don't know if there's a discussion there or not, but it's nice to hear that you guys have this regular line of communication and that you're helping each other. That's really, really cool because that's what this community should be all about.
Yeah. I think it's really some psychological trick of I'm using this software and it works for me. Therefore, it works for anyone. And whoever thinks that doesn't work for them, well, they're wrong.
I think one thing that I've noticed is that the most tribalistic and like publicly emotionally invested people are the users, not the people actually responsible for making it work. It's very strange, but a lot of that stir up typically comes from users. I mean, I've seen KDE developers work really well with GNOME developers in the past. I've seen them comment on each other's GitHub issues and just try and find ways to work through stuff. And it's always genuinely impressive because that's not the way that I think the users present those two sides of the fence, because really I don't think they are on opposing sides. That's just the impression that I think that when you pick something and like Niccolò was saying, if it works for you, right, like it can't be wrong.
Well, it's like sports teams, it's almost like it's almost like the real hardcore like football or soccer or basketball fan when they say, "Hey, we won this week." No, actually, the team that you're rooting for won. You didn't win anything.
I just ate chicken wings on the couch, but I feel accomplished.
And so it's like they're investing. They're trying to justify their time investment or their money investment by just being so aggressively supportive of this one thing that they like.
Jason, what if I told you I wrote an article about this exact thing like 3 days ago?
I would like to read that and probably link to it in the show notes. Yes, definitely.
Well, but about the football example, I gotta say that I also thought about it when Italy won some months ago in the European League, and I was really invested emotionally in Italy winning, even though I never watched a football game ever before. And I was really wondering, why do I care? Like, I've never watched a game of them, but I still want Italy to win. It was weird. It was a moment.
Maybe in the case of football, especially European, it's national pride, maybe. Something like that. I don't know. There's a whole psychological like can of worms that we could unravel there, but that's a different show.
Well, I think when you get into technology, though, when you're talking about devices that people spend their money on, operating systems and software that people devote time and energy into learning and using, people don't like to feel like they're wrong. I feel like that's where you see that kind of stem from, and realizing that there are not necessarily wrong or right choices when it comes to a lot of OS's software. It's what's right for you. I love how you put that, Niccolò, where you said it's like because someone thinks that it's right for them, then it should be right for everyone. But that's not how it works, because we're all human, full humans with agency, right? We all have our own like thoughts and desires and wants and needs, and so people just are very protective of that.
Embrace it. Embrace the diversity. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later when we get into System76 allegedly, but probably definitely developing their own desktop environment. Yes, choice, folks. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to thank our friends at Tuxedo Computers for making Linux for Everyone content possible. Tuxedo specializes in sleek Linux-first laptops, like the exceptional AMD Ryzen-powered Pulse 15 and the mighty Stellaris 15, which features a vivid 1440p display, your choice of 8-core processors from Intel or AMD, and up to an NVIDIA RTX 3080 for all the gorgeous gaming graphics you could possibly want. When Linux for Everyone was on the ropes, Tuxedo stepped in and helped out in a big way, and we are proud to call them a partner in this ongoing journey of ours. Go check them out at tuxedocomputers.com. Well, let's get into every week. No, we don't do this every week. Every episode, we like to discuss what passion projects we're working on. Maybe that's stuff outside of work or just stuff that just makes our soul happy. Niccolò, let's start with you.
Okay. So as far as personal projects go, I do have a couple. And the first one is one that I can say it's a personal project, but I actually stopped working on it like 8 months ago, but I still have hope that I will finish it eventually. And it's API in Python to write text input games. Do you remember years ago when we had those, command line games?
Yeah, like choose your own adventure where you type the command that you want to execute in the game. Yeah.
And my idea to actually make them cool again, let's say, was that instead of actually typing the commands, you have 5 or 6 of them to actually choose between, and it's like a Telegram bot. And you choose the button on the Telegram bot, and the bot replies with what happens, and you choose the next answer. And that way, the communication is really fast, and you can actually enjoy a lot the game and the plot, hopefully.
Technically, you could do that with a large group of people as well, like in a group, right?
Yeah, I was actually doing that, and also making various different players communicate between each other. And I was, in general, try to bring in some cool ideas. The whole games had very structured places when you can switch between, and it was always there. I was trying to make more, you can be in between stuff, and you can also have day-night cycles, that sort of things. I was wondering, what if you try to do a modern text input game?
Jerry's eyes are lighting up because he plays D&D. And I'm
yes.
Are you imagining the possibilities here?
Oh, already, yeah. It's already thinking of how could I incorporate this into my D&D game with my son and his friends? Yeah, that's incredible.
Is it an open source project that people could pick up on and help with, or?
Yes, of course, as long as you don't actually read the code because it's ugly. No,
fair. That's fair.
when I work on projects and they're very personal projects and I don't expect anyone to read them, I go full Python craziness code. I begin doing the weirdest stuff, setters, getters everywhere. But it's very weird code. I'm proud of the weirdness of it, but I hope that in the future I'll be able to make any sense out of it.
Really cool. I hope that you do, because it sounds very captivating. I would love to play. I would love to play something like that. Although
that'd be great.
It would probably be a major distraction from work. But I gotta get my.
I really
move.
like the idea of doing it in something like Telegram because one, it opens up the amount of devices you can do it from, but it also means you can pick it up from anything. So you could just stop doing it on one and pick it up on your phone or something while you're out. That's really cool.
What have you been up to, Mr. System76?
Oh, the huge. So I recently decided that I would finally start making videos about cars, and I've been wanting to do it for a while, and so I hacked together a little video. It's like a short 1-minute montage video of my car that I'm going to end up using for an intro when I do the full review of it.
Oh, okay.
But that's been a fun process, just getting clips together, getting music in, timing different shots. So it's really just a self-done editing practice at this point, but using different tools for that. I use Audacity to clean up my audio a little bit and line it up, or I do that with everything, really. Audacity is a wonderful wonderful tool to have. So. But that's been right now one of my major things, and on top of that, I've been trying to write more, and that's always a fun time. I think that now that I'm not chained to my desk as much, I can just sort of move my laptop anywhere instead of relying on my desktop. It's a little easier to work from a place I'm comfortable.
Yeah. I have to point out to everyone listening or watching that Schickel is an exemplary writer. I mean, he is absolutely fantastic. Like the imagery, the sentence structures, the way that he just like gets you all pumped up about what he's saying. You should go read some of his stuff. Seriously.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Well, I promised you guys that I was going to dabble with Pi-hole and try to install Pi-hole here at home. And I did try.
How'd that go?
I did try. Oh, I don't know, Jerry. How'd it go? You should know. So one day
I don't know anything.
I was following the instructions. Okay, I've got my Raspberry Pi. I think it's a 3B over here.
3B, yeah.
And it was all going very, very smoothly until I don't remember. Let's just say I won't get into detail, but let's just say that the DNS really tripped me up. There was a step involved with DNS, and I think what happened is I forgot to. It's
always DNS.
It's always DNS. I forgot to actually assign the Raspberry Pi as the
DNS server,
right? To take that function away from the router and assign it. And so, long story short, what happened was I executed everything, installed it, executed everything, and then I was locked out of both my router and the Pi. And so I could not log back into my router to reset it as the gateway, to set it as the gateway. And so I called Jerry and I was like, Jerry, God, please help me. And I can't get online. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, there was some DHCP stuff going on too. So I had to put on my network troubleshooting hat. So.
I don't know what it was. DNS gateway, DHCP. It was
Something.
An ugly mess, and he walked me through it in like 5 minutes. But I did not have a chance to successfully set it up. So I just wanted to update you on that. I'm trying of my many millions of projects. That's one that I'm really interested in getting up and running quickly. And along the same lines, I told you guys about the Iode phone. And I've used it now for about a week, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Wow.
This is actually, I don't know if I want to call it a side grade or an upgrade or a downgrade to my Huawei P20 Pro, which will always have a killer camera. This is a Samsung Galaxy S10e that Iode ships. And what they do is they put kind of a slightly tweaked version of Lineage OS on there. And they have their own app called Iode. And what that does is, oh my God. So I'm just updating it for the last 7 days. And you probably won't be able to see that, but I'll tell everybody listening that in the last 7 days, the Iode app has blocked 2,500 tracker requests, including 29 blacklisted recipients. Every time I open this up, and this is only on 21 apps, which isn't really a lot for, I think, to have on your phone, right? It's your Twitter, it's Revolut, it's Discord, it's Telegram. I was floored at just how much tracking activity was trying to beat down my door, and I just, it's hard to sum up my experience after only a week, but I can say that so far, I don't know if this will last, but so far it is completely Google free. So I've been
nice. Kind
of surviving on the total Google free experience, the de-Googled phone, if you will. I'm using Magic Earth for car navigation instead of Google Maps. And I've got Nextcloud on there. I'm trying to switch over from Google Docs to Nextcloud, stuff like that. And if I do, this is what's neat, is it ships with Aurora Store, which is a very cool alternative to the Google Play Store. And it lets you anonymously log in to Google and download stuff from the Play Store if you want to, but I haven't had to do that yet because everything that I have looked for is on the Aurora Store. But if I wanted to, I could log into a Google account anonymously and still download, YouTube and Google Assistant and all that stuff. And everything that I have described, it works out of the box. It just you power on the phone and it's all working. The tracking, the tracker blocking, the anonymous logins, all that stuff is just working. And so that's, I think, kind of what we need when it comes to privacy phones is a system that, you can just turn on and it will work. And there's only one really confusing aspect of it, and they're working on simplifying this a little bit. But when you go into your settings for every single app on your phone, you have like 4 layers of tracker protection. You have standard, socials, porn. This is what they are called. So standard, socials, porn, and extreme. And so what I did is I thought, okay, well, maybe I should check the social box for things like Telegram and Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. But I found that when I checked that box, it wouldn't even allow me to upload any media to my tweet. And so it was a very aggressive form of blocking, which kind of seemed counterintuitive. Like, no, I want that functionality. I just don't want all the tracking happening with it. But they're working on simplifying that. But so far, it's been a really good experience. I mean, I thought that it would be a real pain to live without Google and have, kind of a more locked down phone, but it's been great so far. So, and Games for Everyone launched. That happened.
There it is.
There we go. They're in the lead here.
Maybe I should have led with that. I don't know. You guys know Nick at the Linux Experiment. He's much more popular than I am. So, of course, you know who he is. He's amazing, very handsome Frenchman who is my co-host for Games for Everyone. So if you guys haven't seen that or listened to it yet, definitely go check it out. We have about a 1 hour episode 1 where we go into like our origin stories as gamers. And
right on.
We talk about kind of our gaming habits and our preferences. And then towards the back half of the show, we go in depth testing very old hardware on very modern games. So I pulled out my NVIDIA 980 Ti and stuck it in the Thalio and started testing stuff like Deathloop and Death Stranding and Doom Eternal to see how they would perform at 1080p. And Nick stuck a Radeon RX 580 into a 2011 Mac Pro. So you're going to want to see that.
Dang, that's awesome.
The results are mixed, as you would expect. The results are very mixed. But
that is
you can search
so
Games
cool.
for Everyone on your podcast client. Hopefully, it'll start making its way to all the podcasting clients out there. And of course, we're also on YouTube if you want to watch all the related gameplay footage and our stupid faces.
Well, got a few different things. So I took ownership of, I think it was right before we did the last episode, I took ownership of a brand new M1 Max MacBook Pro, 16-inch MacBook Pro. So I haven't got to really put it through its paces with any sort of benchmarks or anything. And quite honestly, everybody has those. You can find those all over YouTube. I'm more interested in kind of real world usage. And so that being said, like I haven't had time to do any videos or audio or anything on it. So I just haven't. It's been pretty busy with work, but it's a very nice piece of hardware. The screen's great. The notch doesn't bother me. It fades right into the background after I've been using it for a couple of weeks. It's not a big deal. Just kind of using that a little bit. And I mean, it's fantastic. I plan on it being the last laptop I buy for the next 3 to 4 years, but I say that every year or so. So we'll
That's how they
cover
get
that
you.
next
Until
year.
they come
That's
out
how they get you.
Until they come out with the M2 and like, guys, it's 3 times as powerful as the M1.
3 times as right, which is I don't even
You can edit,
not even scratching
you
the
can edit like 78K streams at once.
Yeah, I do plan on running some export benchmarks and stuff against my 3070 and my AMD 3900X 3070 machine that I'm on right now. I do plan on doing some export, like using DaVinci Resolve, just for my own personal kind of like knowledge. Like I like to see how they stack up. So I do plan on doing that maybe sometime this week. Other than that, I recently installed a Fedora 35 onto my desktop. Thanks to Siebsy there in the L3 community channel, he shared a link to I think it's called the Nobara project, which it's Glorious Egg Roll kind of has a custom Fedora ISO that he it's got some tweaks and stuff done to it too, for gaming and streaming and stuff like that. And so got that installed. Been kind of setting it up over the last couple of days. I'm actually on it right now, capturing some of this video, and so far so good. I have all my Steam games installed. I'm going through kind of testing those out, see what works and see what doesn't. And the biggest thing that I discovered actually this morning, so I have an Xbox Live Game Pass Ultimate, so that allows me to do the Xbox Cloud. And so I was like, let me just try that and see how that works on Linux. And so I jumped right in and started playing MLB The Show, which I've been playing on my Xbox. Played Destiny 2. It all worked. It's working. I'm using an OG Xbox 360 controller wired in. I'm sure there's latency, but I couldn't detect it.
That's all that matters, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. That's trying to play a game like Destiny or something, like, obviously if there's latency, that's going to kill it. Or even something like a sports game like MLB The Show, where it's like, timing, trying to hit the baseball and stuff like that. Like there was a little bit, but it wasn't detrimental. The biggest downside I can see right now is that because I'm on a wireless connection and the quality wasn't great, but it was definitely playable and definitely usable, and has caused me to seriously reconsider ever booting back into Windows again.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool.
We've had this conversation countless times. Like, I use whatever tool I need to use at any given moment, and sometimes I do need to use Windows for something. But more and more, I get most of my creative work. Actually, no, I get all of my creative work done on my Mac. That's why I'm a Mac person. I've had this conversation ad nauseum. I choose to be a Mac person for my creative work. There's lots of reasons. We can probably cover that in some episode sometime. I'm happy to go in depth, but for recreation, we talked a little bit about photography. I could do all my photography work if I wanted to on Linux. Mm-hmm. But just gaming has always been a little bit of a hang up for me because there's just certain things that haven't worked. But I've started to switch more and more to console gaming with Xbox. And now with Proton, a lot of my Steam games that I've purchased, that I have a backlog that's insane, but it's all working now. So it's
was it Xbox Cloud? Was it just out of the box with Firefox on Fedora 35, or was it Chrome? Or
so that's the one thing. So I fired it up on Firefox, and it gave me a warning. It worked, but it gave me a warning that I should use a supported browser. And so I installed Chrome, fired up, and it worked fine. I'm gonna try Edge. And I'm going to try Chromium just for testing purposes. I'm sure it'll work fine on Chromium. I logged in with my credentials, and it even showed all of my recently played games as pick up where you left off. Destiny 2 is a big one for me. That's why I've been waiting for because I play that game with my son, and I log into Windows to play Destiny 2 because the anti-cheat stuff. And I know now that because I believe they use BattleEye.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
BattleEye is supported now on Proton.
Is supported. But Bungie has yet to enable that in Destiny, so that's always been kind of a big hang-up. But it's if I can hop in, I can do cross-play. If I can just hop into a session on Xbox Cloud and play with my son and his friends, and it's great. That's a huge hurdle to get over.
I really sincerely want to play Destiny on the deck. And I really hope that Valve is baking Bungie cakes and sending them over every day. Steam Deck's pretty cool, guys. Just flip that switch, would you? Flip that BattleEye switch. Come on.
That's all they got to do. So
that's cool though. That's another aspect that we don't normally talk about when it comes to Linux gaming. Mm-hmm. We're always hammering home the Proton improvements and the driver improvements, but having access to all of your Xbox games is a pretty big deal.
I have a sort of a theory, or maybe a prediction or something with the direction of cloud gaming. Do you guys remember how in the past, I don't know if you guys played a lot of Flash games, but when you first did it, it would load it up and it would basically stream in all the assets onto your disk in a cache, so you would have everything. Or maybe I think it put it on disk, but maybe it put it in memory. Who knows? It did put it in memory because you could run out of that. But I think with technologies that we're seeing, Microsoft has been working on this direct streaming stuff or whatever, where it can load a game assets directly into the graphics card frame buffers from disk rather than RAM. I think as these systems get faster and we implement ways for our disk and our cache to speak directly to the graphics card, we could have really high fidelity games loaded really quickly or streamed in the browser, which would allow us to reduce the latency. So rather than trying to send all of that data constantly and compressing it so much, you can have most of those assets already on disk in like a compressed cache. So that gives you more bandwidth to focus on either shader details or improving latency. And I think these technologies are going to end up working together.
I also think we're going to see, love it or hate it, things like predictive AI, where I think there are some implementations of that already, but where the game engine or the code will actually try to predict what you're going to do in the game and account for that when it comes to like the computational load or the graphics that are going to be loading around you, something like that. I swear to God, that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen someday. Whether or not we love it is a different story. But, in addition to Tuxedo Computers and our friends in the community, Linux for Everyone is also made possible by Linode. If it runs on Linux, you can run it on Linode. They have multiple distros available, including Ubuntu, CentOS, Alpine, and Arch, by the way. They've got multiple server plans to make any app or service flexible and easily scalable. You can use a Linode server to easily set up a WordPress-powered website, your own personal VPN, a dedicated Jitsi or Minecraft server, and much more that you can get installed with a single click. Linode has 24/7, 365 support available by phone, regardless of your plan size, so you can get help from a real person when you need it. Right now, Linux for Everyone fans who are opening a brand new account can get a $100 60-day credit by going to linode.com/Linux4Everyone. Linode's been doing cloud computing since 2003, before Amazon even entered the picture, so they're not trying to take over the retail world like other companies. They're just focused on good old-fashioned, Linux-loving cloud computing. Go to linode.com/Linux4Everyone to get started building your new project. It's where we host all of ours, and we're proud to call them a longtime partner. Speaking of stuff we love, well, I love it. KDE Plasma. Let's talk about this. Hopefully, this is going to roll into our software spotlight as well, because I personally, one of the reasons that I switched over to KDE, it wasn't just the appearance and the customization, it was the defaults. It was the default apps. I found I like the default screenshot app so much more. It's so much more robust than what is offered on GNOME. Kate is fantastic. I mean, it seems like every default app there is just more feature rich, and that's one of the things that really matter to me. So I want to talk about software on KDE, and obviously, Niccolò, why don't we start with you? Well, you're gonna drive this. Let's be honest, because you're kind of the expert here. What do you think are some of the apps that kind of fly under the radar? Do you know what I mean? That don't get as much recognition, but that are really, really cool that Plasma offers.
Well, can I start with a really easy one, which is Calendar? I think you know it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh.
That was a very nice one. Like, the developer, I think, is also doing a great job in doing regular updates on how it's going on and the new stuff. And it's, I think, right now one of the most promising apps that are being developed for KDE. Like, sure, we do have like very cool apps already, like Kate and stuff. But as far as emerging apps go, I think Calendar is a very strong contender. There's also Coco, which is less known, I think.
I don't even know about that one, actually.
Yeah.
No, Coco?
Coco is the new, hopefully it will replace GwenView in being KDE's image viewer.
Okay.
I mean, it has a job and it's a simple one. It needs to show you your images and let you edit them. And it's being developed with Kurigami. And it's really looking promising. I think Coco and Calendar are the two like top picks that I would pick right now.
I love the new system monitor. The new system monitor is
It's very nice.
And the fact that I can just stick my GPU metrics up there as well is, I mean, as someone who's constantly benchmarking and wanting to keep an eye on his GPU, that's the thing. Something that I've noticed, maybe it's that the KDE team is making more noise about it than the GNOME team, but it seems like they are constantly, and I mean, when I say constantly, I mean daily or weekly, adding features to the entire suite of software and to the desktop environment itself. I mean, it seems like they are iterating and improving things at such an insane pace.
I cannot do comparison with GNOMEs, but I do think that we are good at making noise about what we're doing with Nate's blog, which
that is so
as
great.
soon as Nate publishes a blog, like all of the Linux new articles go that copy paste most of the time, and it's really cool. Well, one thing that
copy paste, like be original with your reporting, but yeah.
One thing that we've learned in the KDE promotion team is that if you do a nice blog post, people are going to copy paste it, and we're going to get lots of impressions. So that's good.
That is good. That is good. And yeah, Nate's blog is one of the I get genuinely excited every time I get a notification for a new article in my inbox, because he's just like fun. He's kind of fun to read, and there's always like one or two bullet points in there where you're like, oh, I gotta try that right now. I gotta update and try that right now. When you guys get together or have virtual meetings, or do you strategize how to promote KDE?
Well, there is a promotion team, which in theory should be the one in charge of promotion. It only does official promotion, whereas Nate's blog or my channel are unofficial and not covered by the team. So on the official things, we do have team and organization and everything, whereas for personal blogs and channels, it's up to us. And we do talk about that, saying, hey, why don't you cover this or include this link? But, it's different from KDE official articles.
I want to ask all of you this question and just see if my observation lines up with yours.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel like a lot of people are switching to KDE right now?
I think so. I feel that's definitely a perception that I have. I think for me, it started back when Ubuntu Studio is a project that I follow pretty closely. And I know their distro used to ship with XFCE as the default desktop environment, and I forget when it was. It was last year sometime that they switched to KDE as the default. For a while, there was this growing kind of misunderstanding that KDE was heavy on resources, right? And I think Jason, you did a shootout with this, comparing XFCE, which is known to be a lightweight distro, versus KDE. And I think they were basically the same. There's obviously been a lot of work done on KDE to make it more efficient under the hood. I think that I use KDE as my daily driver for a while because it's performant. As you said, Jason, out of the box, top to bottom, it's ready to go. You can theme to your heart's desire, which is great. I think a lot of people really like that. But for me, actually, I prefer to just fire it up and be ready to go. And that's the big thing. So, and this isn't a drag on GNOME at all, but for this GNOME install that I have currently, I spent a good 2 or 3 hours just kind of tweaking things and installing extensions and making things kind of how I want it. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's not a lot for me to do in KDE. It's got very sensible defaults out of the box. Very, very, very rarely do I have to change much. I go breeze all the way down. It's for my theme. I think it's beautiful out of the box. And I've got stuff like KRunner, which is if I had to pick something that was my go-to app in KDE, it's KRunner. To me, that's I'm just so used to, maybe it's my Mac background, just having that Spotlight type launcher. My Mac ground. But That's good.
background.
Good.
That's great.
I think that's why. So to answer your question, that was a very long way to answer your question, but yeah, I definitely think so because of all of those reasons I just listed.
Shikul, what about you? Have you noticed this at all? Now, I know you're using, I believe Fedora 35 at the moment, but
I am.
But have you perceived this switch in the community?
Oh yeah. I've heard it quite a bit, and like I'm not gonna lie. Like I think, as far as I can tell, GNOME is like the most commonly used desktop in Linux, and much of that is probably just because it's shipped on like the major distributions, right? It's on Ubuntu, so that's running in like every university ever somewhere in the basement. But I hear a lot of talk about KDE, and it does get a lot of love, and I think especially. Like was mentioned earlier with the performance things, there has been some serious work put into improving the way that KDE handles things, both in terms of memory efficiency, but I think also in terms of general compute efficiency. For a while there it was something where like the memory usage got cut back, but when you went to go do something, you'd have higher CPU usage, right? Because it had to compensate for loading up those assets. But that stuff has gotten a lot better, and it's been getting better consistent. The reliability of KDE, I think, has been incredible lately, and I hear people say, like, well, I switched to KDE, and it's nothing like my impression was of it.
KDE at the end of 2021 is nothing like my impression of Kdenlive at the beginning of 2020. And that's a compliment. That's a very
no, it's great.
Yeah, because Kdenlive is also like super stable these days, and I think that
it's
just
really good.
Trickles right on down to the whole KDE ecosystem.
And I think a couple of I'm really weird, right? Like one of my favorite things in tech is file systems. I have a passion for file systems for some weird reason. I'm always fascinated by them. And so when I think of like KDE apps that really stand out to me, I actually think Partition Manager is one of my favorites. I fiddle with it a lot. I love the way that it pretty much any format it does. I know with Gparted, they rely on similar tools in the background, but I think KDE's Partition Manager just has a lot more recent additions to it. It feels like it's actively being changed and improved, and it's made my life so much easier.
That's awesome.
And I also use Breeze through the whole thing too.
All the way down.
I think Breeze is great all the way down. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful theme. So, or I guess technically it would be a style. I guess it's both.
Niccolò, what about you? Like, have you seen this shift?
I do think that it's a very lucky combinations, maybe not necessarily lucky, but a good combination of various events that happened. Not only did we get better at doing noise, but also there were like, actually, let me pick them just a sec.
Sure.
Let me flex on this. Here I have the time book. Yeah. And whenever a person tells me that Plasma is
that
like
slow, is that the original Pinebook?
Yeah, it's the smaller one.
Wow,
I love that.
Hold on a second.
I use this every day, like literally every day. And every time a person tells me, yeah, Plasma is slow, it needs RAM, this is 2 gigabytes of RAM.
That's incredible.
It's fast. And then there was the Steam Deck. And then we also got a fork of the Plasma Mobile Project Ear, the JinkPad, and so on. All of the devices coming out, and also us making more noise, and also distribution switching to KDE like Studio. I do remember when Studio switched, and it was a good day.
That's great.
And all of these things combined do really make us feel like there's a way of, things are going good. And we're happy.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Tuxedo Computers also recently switched Tuxedo OS to Plasma. I don't know how recently that was, but yeah, they also made that switch. And Steam Deck, that has to be giving you guys a lot of visibility, right? Knowing that Steam OS 3.0 is going to have KDE baked in now,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Mycroft Mark II, Linux for Everyone 55. We had the interview with Josh Montgomery of Mycroft, and Mycroft Mark II uses Plasma as well. So
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We have conclusively proven that more people are switching to KDE Plasma than ever.
So scientific.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
scientific.
Also,
Well,
I know this isn't new. I know it's not new, but it's still, I think, probably one of the best aspects of Plasma as a desktop is the fact that everything is widgets. I can take the same little widget application information thing and throw it on my desktop, or I can have it in the panel. And the fact that I can use like an alternative dock, like Latte Dock, and all of those widgets work inside Latte Dock.
Modularity is amazing.
It's so incredible. And it's the one thing that gets me every single time. I'm like, instead of completely remaking everything for every different element of the desktop, it just works through all of them. And it's just so good. I wish that was something that more desktops did well.
And the coolest part about LatteDock being able to use Plasma widgets is that you can actually use LatteDock on third-party desktop as well using Plasma applets. So you can use like Kickoff on GNOME.
What?
And you can mix
amazing.
everything. It's crazy.
That is so
It's
cool.
crazy. That's awesome.
Guess who's installing Plasma now?
Yeah. There we go. See? It's happening right now during the recording
now we
of this
have
show.
a positive integer gain for Plasma user share, and so technically everything we said was absolutely true.
And everything we say is always true. Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a different desktop environment. The one the System76 is reportedly building. This news popped off, I think, less than 48 hours ago, and it stemmed from a Reddit thread where one of System76's own engineers said that they are working on their, quote, own desktop. A response further said, let's see. Well, System76 engineer, maintainer Michael Murphy, who goes by MMStick, he commented that System76 will be its own desktop. When further poked about that, whether that means a fork of GNOME, the response he gave was no, it is its own thing written in Rust. When I asked you guys, the audience, for your thoughts on this, Jeremy Soller of System76 responded, not confirming it. He didn't confirm it, but he said, we'll only do what makes our users happy. If it doesn't work, it dies. So
Which is incredibly interesting and incredibly that's the right answer.
Yes. Yeah, it certainly is. And I think I don't want to speak for the company, but it certainly sounds like confirmation that, they perhaps had a lot more in mind than just Cosmic. Like Cosmic is just like Pop Shell and Cosmic were just the stepping stones to ditching the GNOME desktop environment, which is surprising, I think. And let's unpack this and talk about it.
See, this wasn't a surprise to me whatsoever when I saw this news pop down. And I guess we probably should clarify, Shiko, you in no way speak authoritatively for System76.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Probably good to call out.
I cannot confirm or deny anything officially.
Sure. Yeah, totally fair. But when I saw this, this wasn't surprising to me at all. When I saw with efforts like they have with Cosmic and the Pop Shell, it has seemed to me like this was just a natural progression. I don't claim to know any of the internal goings on at System76, but the vibe has always been to me that they're a very obviously customer centric company.
Oh yeah.
And so, right. And then also very forward thinking. And so that's why Jeremy's comment doesn't surprise me at all, that they're going to do what makes their customers happy. And so I 100% am not surprised that they have they are testing this out and they're working on this to get something running to try out. May or may not have it running somewhere, and we'll do if it makes the experience of using Pop! OS / System76 hardware even better. Why would they not do it? That to me, that just makes sense. It's kind of that Apple mentality of, not to compare the two, it's two completely different things, but that mentality of being able to kind of be in control of your destiny somewhat. Like, it makes sense that they want to develop their own software for hardware, right? Like, there's a synergy there. To me, I don't know. It just makes sense. It was not a surprise. Actually, I think it's going to be great. At the very least, it'll be a neat, like, experiment, and if it fails, it dies, right? So, like, but it might not fail. It might not fail, and it might be great. I really like Cosmic. I like what they've done with Pop Shell. I love what they've kind of done. They may or may not feel limited by what GNOME affords to them, and so why not try to?
I think when it comes to GNOME, we can only speculate. Like,
exactly, 100%.
Anything else would be irresponsible, I think. But
100%.
What I can say is, if you look at the trajectory of System76 and their software, this totally makes sense. Just like you said, like when they first launched the company as a hardware vendor, I think they maybe launched with like Ubuntu 17.10. On their PCs, and then they started immediately working on Pop! OS, right? Because they wanted to further refine the experience, and Ubuntu wasn't the experience that they wanted to give. But a lot of the components of Ubuntu were, right? And a lot of the components of GNOME. And then they introduced Pop Shell with the auto tiling, and so you saw them go a little bit diverge a little bit more from the traditional GNOME experience, and then Cosmic diverging even a little bit more. And so I think that this all adds up. I think it's maybe a bit of a gamble, but I think, as you said, Jerry, it makes sense. If it makes sense for their users and it's going to give a great hardware experience, then why not? Why not? Since we have Niccolò here, I wanted to say that I also have observed a ton of people going, hey, can we please get Pop! OS with KDE Plasma? I'm sure you guys have all seen this.
Well, that's where this conversation originated, in a Reddit thread about KDE, Pop! OS using KDE. I'm pretty sure that's where this whole conversation originated from.
Yeah. I mean, did they ever approach, like, if you know, has System76 ever come to KDE and had that discussion, or?
Not that I know of, but okay. I am in no way responsible of all developers, so
yeah,
I really cannot say.
I just
if they did contact KDE, it would make sense to contact like KWin developers, and I almost never talk to them because it's such a different project, so I wouldn't know, honestly.
The existence of KDE Plasma and the loud, the very loud, impassioned requests for a fork, a variant of Pop! OS with Plasma, it leads me to believe, and again, I'm not going to put words in the mouths of System76. I don't know why I can't say that tonight. System76. But it really leads me to believe that their design philosophy is not at all lined up with GNOME's anymore. And I think that they have come to a point where they might not like the roadmap that GNOME has, where their users are concerned, where Pop! OS users are concerned.
I think on a general level too, and I think this is something that is probably shared between any project that has to rely on another one upstream for anything, is that there's a certain point at which you're not able to control the changes, or there are things that are going to happen that aren't going to be aren't either going to allow you to keep doing the same thing in exactly the same way, or are going to make things difficult to change in a certain way. And I think every project at some point has these moments where any upstream wants to go in a certain direction, and those downstreams have to either find other ways to work through it or consider other technologies if they can't either make changes that both can work with or anything like that. So I think it's a natural progression. I mean, they definitely, both GNOME's design choices and Pop! OS's design choices, they're very different in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, and again, not speaking officially, but just straight up speaking from my heart, I trust that both projects will do, what they believe is in the best interests of their users at the end of the day. And I think those priorities are just different sometimes. So,
Niccolò, can you speak at all to the complexity or the undertaking that is developing a brand new desktop environment? I mean, can you give us a sense of what amount of work that requires?
What I'm wondering hearing this news is, okay, you're building your own desktop, but how much of it are you doing yourself, and how much are you, using, like, let's say the Windows Manager. You're going to take like Mutter, is it called, from GNOME, I think?
Yeah.
Mutter. Yeah.
Or are you going with another one, or are you doing your own? Because just doing the window manager is pretty complex, and that's something that you don't usually just worry about taking from other projects. There are many projects who use KWin, even though they're not Plasma. And if you're just developing like the shell, well, it's a bit easier already if it's just the shell. But what about the more underlying stuff like network managing or the clipboard, the audio? And you also need to write something to expose those things to the users nicely from scratch, and also panels and sidebars.
It sounds daunting to me.
You also need to, and all of that can be done, I think, with a bit of determination. I don't think that's an impossible task. I do trust System76 if they're able to do it. But how do you make sure that the design language is consistent through apps? Because no way you're going to do like apps from scratch. Like, no way. I don't think that's possible, honestly, to do all of the applications from scratch.
That would have to take years.
And if you do keep the apps, how do you make sure that the style of the apps is compatible with the one of the shell? That's not as easy as it sounds. It's consistency, and that's what I'm doing in KDE, and it's not easy.
Yeah. I feel like System76 has a good eye towards design language when it comes to consistency with Pop! OS. But that's an interesting observation. I kind of find myself wondering if Pop! OS will end up being like Peppermint OS, sort of a elegantly Frankensteined distro, right? Because Peppermint OS uses elements from everything, but uses them together in a way that makes sense and looks good and feels good. And I kind of wonder, maybe, like you're saying, if Pop! OS will borrow some of these elements and adapt them for the new desktop. And I'm wondering how much do they write from scratch using Rust? I don't know anything about Rust.
Personally, I'm a fan of Rust just because while I don't do a lot in Rust, I'm very bad at it. I've seen people make really incredible things in Rust, and they're ridiculously hard to break. Like it's very easy to write decent stuff in Rust compared to the traditional like C stuff. So that's what I really appreciate about it. And I know Jeremy is a Rust guy, so it does not surprise
to say the
me.
Least. Yeah, he's very much a Rust guy.
I'm pretty sure he isn't it Redux. That's like literally an entire kernel written in Rust that he works on. Yeah.
As always, we are very curious to get your feedback as well. So a real quick community voice segment this time around. I asked you guys what your feelings were about System76 allegedly developing their own desktop environment. This one comes from Hank G on Twitter. And he says, I was going to say first Solus GNOME and now this. You guys know what that's referring to? Solus GNOME, that situation. If anything, I'd hope that the distros combine some efforts into a non-GNOME, non-GTK platform if this is actually the way things are going. And then a completely opposite comment to that from Linux for Norms on Twitter, Linux for Norms. Many will say this is fragmenting, but this is how innovation works. And I've heard this term used for over a decade, and it's only gotten better, not worse. I spent years distro hopping because nothing ever fit quite right for me until I found Solus Budgie. I'm all for new developments. And so those are the big two fights that are going to emerge here, I think, is people saying, oh no, more fragmentation, and people saying, well, Linux is about choice, so let them have it.
The biggest thing for me is that, because I've always sort of felt that, like, in a way, if we had more consistency and unification as a whole, it'd be easier to target for application developers, especially when it comes to things like display stuff or GPU stuff in particular. Like, it's part of why we have such a hard time with GPU acceleration in the browser, right? It's because there's like a million different ways to go about it, and we haven't really settled on one. With every distribution and every different desktop and technology, the people that are working on it and designing on it are doing so because there is a user base for it. Whether it's just themselves or whether it is a certain amount of people, whether or not the size of it is big or small, there is a user base and those people want that. So it's never for nothing, right? But on top of that, I think a big part of it is that the argument of them all just working together on one thing, I think the core flaw of that is that, yes, they could technically work together and all make one thing, but I think developers are going to do their best work when they're genuinely interested and passionate about the direction of what they're working on.
Yes.
They're going to follow what they love because that's where they're going to succeed. And I think that's kind of how everyone works generally.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement. I think you're right, and I think that the few people that I know at System76 would probably back you up on that. You know. Now, I do want to read a comment from Vega, who Vega, by the way, shout out to Vega, who moderates our Matrix and Discord communities. He has a bit of a more a sharper comment, shall we say. To be honest, I think that this will hurt important areas like language support and general feel of polish. The GNOME platform is very mature compared to most other desktop environments and is in the process of ironing out the smallest of the quirks. With how System76 re-implemented search with the pop launcher, I think this will be a disaster. So no holding back. With all due respect to Schickel and everyone that I know over there, I very much dislike how they implemented search in the Cosmic. We need something like Spotlight on Mac OS. That's what we need. Yep. Especially digital pack rats. You know, we just let me search for whatever. Okay. Everything on my system.
I'm sorry.
Apps,
hold on.
Files, whatever.
I got to know what a digital pack rat is. It went over my head.
But okay, so a digital pack rat is like, to me anyway, the definition is just, oh my God, I love that meme. Throw it there on the desktop.
Oh,
like,
okay, right.
These outtakes. I'm just gonna save these forever. I don't know if I'll ever use them, or you know, the like 40 Pearl Jam bootlegs that I digitized from my tape trading days that I leave on a USB stick, and just, you know, like, digital pack rat.
As soon as you said meme folder, I was like,
meme folder.
I got you.
That it's so important to have, like, again, that's why I said things like KRunner for me are so invaluable. And right now on GNOME, I'm running the great tool called uLauncher.
Oh, uLauncher's wonderful.
If I'm not on KDE, it's one of the first things that I install.
It kind of reminds me of, because I know we have Spotlight on Mac, and I really love that tool. I mean, it does just about everything I need. But I know there's other ones too, and they make them for Linux as well. There's like Alfred and Albert and
I use
Aladdin,
Alfred.
I don't know
On the Mac, yeah.
they're really incredible because you can bake in everything from let's say complex equations you could just do in your search launcher, or you can
Awesome.
have it
Trigger
run
screen.
scripts and
automations.
it's incredible.
For sure.
We have to remember that System76 and Pop! OS is it's such a different animal than something like KDE Plasma. KDE Plasma is trying to, they're all trying to be great products, obviously, and they are great products. But KDE Plasma is trying to cast a very wide net and capture a wide audience. System76 doesn't need that. As much as you might want them to need that, they don't need that with Pop! OS. The only people that Pop! OS has to serve well are their hardware customers, and that's the truth. Like if they end up, and they end up making a distro that continues to climb the Steam gaming charts and continues to gain over new users that aren't System76 hardware customers, all the best for them. At the end of the day, System76 only has to serve their hardware customers with Pop! OS. I think we need to understand that is most likely their what's driving them for this move. It's not to be the best, most mainstream, most user-friendly, most distro with everything you want in it. It's something to make their hardware customers happier.
Which good for them. That's exactly how, to me, that's exactly how it should be. So.
And again, if anybody from System76 wants to comment on that, then you're more than welcome to. That's just my, that's just my interpretation.
And not to draw comparisons again to Apple, because it always feels weird because I know people don't like it. But there are every business has certain aspects of it that kind of make sense and are similar to each other. And of course, I don't speak for anyone on the at System76 or the desktop team right now. I'm just me. I'm just a dude. But if you look at macOS in particular, I'm not aware of any instance in which people are Apple's is designing macOS to run on every single device out there because that's gonna get them what they need, because it's not really key to their success. If you really want to make a good solid product and you're relying on hardware and you have in-house hardware, it makes way more sense to target that and prioritize that rather than sort of sacrificing it and maybe degrading that experience just for a few extra numbers on the market share board. That's not going to give you the success.
This brings up a question.
Does it?
Yeah. Well, I have so many questions, but
what is your query?
My query is for Niccolò, and my query is, hypothetically, let's say that System76 10 years from now, they want to have their own desktop environment, their own apps, and their own in-house made laptops. What would you picture being an amazing goal for KDE 10 years from now?
I think that pretty much everybody right now, the big players, want to build the platform with, everyone would like to have their own desktop, their own store with their own apps, with their own, Qt, GTK thingies, and their own hardware. And it's so hard to actually put all of those things together. If you've got software like KDE does, we don't quite do hardware. And if you do hardware, then you also need to build the software. And that's what I think System76 is pointing at. So if you say, what's a big goal for KDE? I would say the same thing as System76, but opposite sides. I think we should start doing laptops. I think that would be the main goal. And that's something that I would like to work on, but I know nothing of hardware, so that's a bit of an issue.
Because you guys have had a lot of partnerships, right? A lot of hardware partnerships, which are all pretty great, but no actual in-house design. This is the flagship KDE Plasma experience right here. We built it. We built the software. We built the hardware. I mean, that's no easy task. But that's a cool goal. That's a very cool goal. One that I can definitely
I
appreciate
think
that.
as a user on both the hardware and the software side, like that's always been one of the most critical aspects to me that is always, and maybe some of it is superficial, right? But I'm a very first party kind of person. I always want the best solutions from one place rather than trying to piece together other things. And so sometimes I struggle to pick a distribution, right? With like, I may think this particular piece of it is cool, but like everything else about it is just sort of not the focus. That's not the point, right? Like this is coming from over there, this is coming from over here, and the only like two things there that I care about are only part of the picture. Right? So like when I choose, like, let's say a Plasma distribution, I've always struggled because there's always that like, well, what's the best Plasma distribution, right? And as a user, I just want the one that is Plasma, right? But obviously, that's not really a thing. Like, there's so many components to that, and I do the same thing with GNOME, right? Like there is and there isn't. Like it's the one actual GNOME distribution isn't even like a distribution. It's a testing platform.
GNOME OS.
So
Just
GNOME
for-
OS, yeah. Which
Just
is
like
cool.
them.
I can't really use it, you know. But so that for me, right, extends all the way from the highest level of the software all the way down to the hardware. Having that, and that's part of why, like in the past, I really appreciated what Elementary OS did, is because they had a very, very strong focus, and they still do, on that direction of having a very consistent from top to bottom sort of way of doing things, and being very clear about what is elementary and what is not.
Yeah.
And so as a user and as a consumer, because that's really at the core of it, I do far more consuming than I do producing.
I love to consume.
I'm just funny that way. I sit on the couch, chicken wings.
Yep.
It's great. So I think these aspects, and I think every platform as they grow and branch out, because let's be real, there's 7-8 billion people in the world. We're not going to run out of users. we keep adding more. So I think there's room.
It's a growth market. Okay.
It's a growth market. It's just I think it can happen, and I think at some point we'll see these grow. I mean, like if you look at Mac OS, if you look at where the core of the OS even started, right? Like it came from like an open project with different like there's so many things. Like the core of Mac OS is a BSD. And if you look at all the incredible things that BSD is doing in all these different spaces, right? You've got OpenBSD with all their crazy security stuff, and you've got FreeBSD, which is the base for a bunch of other platforms like TrueNAS, and as things grow, I think they can become their own platforms, and that sort of, rather than just having it all these separate components, it becomes one, and it becomes one platform. And I think an end goal of that is hard, and it sucks during the process, but once you get there, it's amazing.
And everyone has the potential to get there. They do.
Yeah.
Like they really do. Okay, well, inspired by that comment that you made a few minutes ago, Nicco, let's do round robin. Everybody tell me, what is your favorite KDE Plasma distribution? Jerry.
Oh boy. Arch with KDE.
Okay.
I'm going to go with OpenSUSE Tumbleweed.
Wow. I feel like that's the underdog of the... Okay, interesting. I haven't actually used that one. I'm going to have to give it a look. Niccolò?
I'll go with the one I'm actually using, which is KDE Neon. I don't expect users to use it, but it's nice if you're a developer.
And I'm going to say Garuda Linux Gaming Edition. Thank you very much.
Ooh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's not my daily driver, but I think it is the best. In terms of visuals, it's the best, in my opinion.
I would like to give like an honorary shout out to Fedora KDE. They've done a lot of work over the past couple of releases at really polishing that up. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for the work they've put in on that. I'm really impressed by it.
Well, guys, I think we've reached the end. I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
You sound hopeful, but the statement out of context sounds so dismal.
It's okay. The truth is, I've been awake since 6:30 a.m. and it is now 9:30 p.m.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Delirium has set in.
it is setting in for sure. Before we say goodbye, let's give Niccolò a chance to tell everybody where they can find him and stalk him and consume his content.
Yep. So as far as my YouTube channel goes, you can find it by Googling Niccolò space VE. That would be a game, war game with Niccolò. I also have a website with all of my interests on nicco.love. And the important things are there, I think. I also have a GitHub, stuff like that. I don't update it very much. The most important things are the YouTube channel and my website. Yeah.
Nicco.love?
Nicco.love.
Oh, cool.
That is great.
That's a neat domain name, man. That's I didn't know that one existed. That's awesome.
Cool.
Jerry, where can everybody track you down?
Twitter.com/Jerry Morrison. Best place to find me.
You can find me on Twitter as well, at Schickel, SCHYKLE on Twitter. Imagine if I spelled that wrong. And then I also write my stuff on Medium, at least for now. So that's schickel.medium.com, and I write about all kinds of crazy things. And then also, if you want to look at my car and watch videos that I do with cars, I'm Schickel on YouTube, and yeah, I'm excited to have you watch me, ?
You can find me, my personal Twitter is KillYourFM, and of course Linux, the number 4, everyone on Mastodon and Twitter. And I definitely encourage you to check out our Matrix and Discord spaces. Those are always linked in the show notes. Wherever you're listening to or watching this episode, those links are always going to be there. And we also have a brand new subspace for Games for Everyone, where you can talk about Linux gaming, Windows gaming, not Mac gaming because it doesn't exist, cloud gaming, mobile gaming,
Just wait.
PC building, all kinds of great subcategories for video game fans. And that's going to do it for Linux for Everyone, episode 56. Thank you very much, very, very much for sharing all of your wisdom with us, Niccolò, and best of luck with KDE Platform going forward. Keep us posted, and you've got an open invitation to come back to the show anytime you want.
Thanks, Niccolò.
And with that,
thank you.
You guys take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.